Immortals of Aveum is a single-player first-person shooter set in a fantasy world full of magic, plenty of conflict, and nearing total destruction. The game is developed by Ascendant Studios, led by creative director of Dead Space and multiple Call of Duty campaigns. It is released on PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X and S, and PC. In the world of Aveum, ley lines spread magic across the land and can be used by the characters in the game known as Magni. Originally comprised of 5 kingdoms, Aveum is separated by fissures that culminate at the center of the world in an infinite chasm. This chasm is known as the Wound. Players can control Jack, a Triarch Magni, with the rare ability to wield all 3 colors of magic: red, blue, and green. More on them later. As a new immortal, Jack is tasked with taking on the Everwar and healing the wound of Aveum. Let's talk about combat. Immortals of Aveum features gameplay similar to a first-person shooter. However, rather than guns, Jack wields sigils to harness the power of the 3 types of magic that you can shoot at your foes. Red magic is effective at short range, similar to a shotgun. Blue magic is more precise and requires the finesse of something more like a sniper rifle without a scope, as well as other varieties of defensive weapons and spells included. Green magic fires rapidly like a repeater weapon, or think of an SMG with a small magazine of bullets that can slow down enemies. Players will have to reload their attacks similar to a gun. While any spell can be used at will on your foes, the game wants you to focus on enemies with the same magic types and sigils of your choice. Matching the colors to the enemies will do max damage and really show off the power of Jack. The game has 5 types of spells: Strike, Fury, Control, Augment, and Dominion. Strike spells, these are primary attacks, spells determined by the type of sigil equipped. Then there are Fury spells. These are heavy attacks. Each magic type has 2 Fury spells. Unlike Strike spells, Fury drains the player's Fury mana bar and should be used wisely. The mana bar can be replenished with mana crystals, which can be found throughout the world. There's also Control spells. These spells allow the player to manipulate the environment. Each magic type has 1 control spell. These can be used to quickly traverse the environment, slow down enemies, stun enemies, or solve various puzzles. Augment spells. These spells can be used to enhance the player's playstyle. Shield can be used for defense, while spells like Blink and Hover can be used for evasion. And Dominion spells. The player's ultimate attack. It combines all 3 magic types to unleash an attack that shreds your enemies. The game has a very large skill tree, which they call talents. There are 81 talents that are grouped into 3 types of magic, unlocked by earning ascension points as you progress through the game and battle enemies. It is a very large skill tree and allows you to really change up your gameplay style. Let's get into the gear. There is a lot of gear in this game. Gear is placed throughout the game world as enemy drops, chests, or as rewards from challenges known as Shroud Feigns, which are not for the light at heart, by the way. So if you decide to play with those, get ready and be geared up for sure. But gear can be equipped and allows you to build your character to a specific play style, also allowing more replay value by revisiting the game and gearing up differently. Gear is available in 4 rarity: common, rare, epic, and legendary. You can craft, upgrade, dismantle gear at a forge, can also be upgraded with currency earned by defeating enemies and fighting chests and more. Plenty of definite options here for everybody out there. If you want to mix and match your playthrough, if you want to focus on one color more than the other and get 3 completely different playthroughs because you're going to just be a beast at one, it could make it a little tough when you're needing to fight those enemies that are supposed to be specific to the color they are, but that could just add a little challenge and maybe a little bit more fun as well. Now let's talk about those 4 types of gear that they give us in the game: sigils, totems, rings, and bracers. Let's talk about sigils first. They can harness magic and cast spells. Sigils are geared toward a specific magic color and can only cast spells related to that magic type. While only 3 sigils can be equipped at a time, players can swap between them freely to perform different attack combinations. It's quite entertaining. Makes you feel extremely powerful as well. On to totems. Totems have enhanced control spells and other types of magic. Then we also have the rings. Those enhance player and spell stats, and players can equip up to 2 rings at a time. And then we have bracers. Bracers enhance the player's armor and magic. I'm talking a ton of upgrades here you guys can do. Tons and tons of switching back and forth, changing, focusing on which type of playthrough you'd really like to go with. And it really does make a giant difference on the amount of power you're going to get based off of what build you really go with all of your gear. Now, the story of Aveum is very well done. Lots of action, big set pieces, explosions, tons of magic, tons of fighting, so many great things in it, excellent performances, but it's not perfect. It does have a rough edge here and there that you are going to see, but for me, the biggest one was probably going to be the lip syncing. Something was just off, it didn't look right, definitely broke me out of the immersion, but the performances did make up for that little bit of lacking that I saw there with the performance capture. That everybody was just really into character, and it really sent it home by the end of the game. It really stuck. It was a really great story. I really enjoyed it. The humor in the game, though, I got to talk about this because there's not enough humor in video games, and this game really tried. It didn't hit a home run, but it did a great job of really building in some humor into what's a more serious story. And there are genuinely some funny moments in the game. I mean, they had me chuckling.
Good to see you, kid.
Me too.
Yeah. Thought you could use some more guns.
These moments may not hit for everyone, but I mean, they definitely hit for me, but that's pretty typical of any sort of comedy, right? The pacing and checkpoints throughout the game were great up until about the last 10% of the game. Something just felt like it was missed. The final couple of checkpoints were extremely far apart, which meant when I got to my final boss battle, and I had full health, and then I got destroyed by that, well, I had to go back and start over. So that last checkpoint previous to the boss was about a 15-minute run back of just getting through more and more difficult enemies before you get to them. So that's a problem. However, that is not my biggest flaw of Immortals of Aveum. The game spends majority of its time making you feel absolutely badass and powerful from the beginning, and then putting you into a boss fight that just takes that feeling away. Which I understand, it's a boss fight, and it's supposed to be tough. But that's not my complaint. It's the fact that the fight was just so different from all the other fights in the game, which makes the final boss more confusing than fun for me. My final complaint with the game is the healing mechanic and how long it takes to activate to your health bar. This causes several unnecessary deaths in the game with all the things going on during battles. Now, I understand games are going to have issues with healing, something's going to be delayed, they need to try to make it realistic. This didn't need to be this way. It should be instantaneous. We're talking about magic here, but you would push the heal button and then you would have to wait, a second or two, and in that second or two you could just get killed. And sometimes it didn't work at all, to be honest. So there was an issue there with the healing mechanic in the game that I feel like should be addressed. Probably won't be, but I still had a problem with it. In conclusion, Immortal of Aveums is a fun game. It reminds me of the gaming days of 2010, which is a good thing. I absolutely loved the time of gaming in history in 2010. The full price of $70 though for this game, it's just not warranted. Thankfully, I did pick up this game on sale. It was a $20 range roughly. That's absolutely worth the price of this game experience. Taking the cost of the game into effect, I can't recommend picking this one up at full price. But I can highly recommend that you put it on your wish list, watch for sales, because it's one of the more fun single-player, linear, first-person, throwback games I've played in a while.